this is what happens when you can do exactly what you like, you know? It started out with me wanting to record music and writing music.
What if I told you that one of the greatest pop groups in history, a band that sold over 400 million records worldwide, owed a massive, hidden debt to the Queen of Soul herself? What if I told you that, for decades, ABBA's Benny Andersson kept silent about a truth so profound, so personal, that it changed the entire way we understand ABBA's music? Because here's the thing, Benny finally talked, and what came out? It changes everything. Stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you're going to hear ABBA's music you've loved your whole life, in a completely different way. To understand why this revelation matters so much, we have to go back, way back. Picture 1960s Detroit, Michigan. A young girl stands in the New Bethel Baptist Church, her father, Reverend C.L. Franklin, watching from the pulpit. She opens her mouth, and the entire room stops breathing. That girl was Aretha Louise Franklin. At the same time, thousands of miles away in Stockholm, Sweden, a teenage boy named Jew Ran Bror Benny Andersson was teaching himself to play every instrument he could get his hands on. Accordion at 6, piano by 12. By 18, he was the keyboard player for Sweden's biggest rock band, the Hepstars, nicknamed the Swedish Beatles. Two completely different worlds, two completely different sounds. Detroit gospel fire and Swedish folk melancholy, one black, one white, one American, one Swedish. On the surface, nothing in common. But music doesn't care about geography. Music doesn't care about race or language. And here is the truth that Benny Andersson, now 78 years old, with nothing left to prove and everything left to say, has finally, fully confirmed. If as Aretha Franklin's shadow stretches across every single ABBA record ever made box, before we get to Benny's confirmation, you need to understand exactly how enormous Aretha Franklin was, and still is. Aretha Franklin is not just a singer. Rolling Stone magazine has named her the greatest singer of all time, twice. She earned 18 Grammy Awards, including the first 8 trophies ever handed out for Best Female R&B Vocal Performance. 1 to 12 of her singles charted. She had 20 #1 R&B singles, more than any female artist in history. In 1987, she became the first female artist of any genre to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. President Obama awarded her the Presidential Medal of Freedom. She received a Pulitzer Prize when she stepped in last minute at the 1998 Grammy Awards to replace an ailing Luciano Pavarotti and sang the operatic tenor aria Nessun Dorma, a piece written for a male voice. She didn't just sing it, she transformed it. The world was left speechless. But it wasn't just about voice or technique. Aretha brought something deeper, something rooted in the black church tradition of Detroit, in the gospel fire of her father's congregation. As music historian Jack Hamilton put it, there is American music before Aretha Franklin, and after Aretha Franklin. She changed everything. She brought melisma, that extraordinary technique of running a series of notes over a single syllable, into mainstream popular music. She made soul more than a genre. She made it a truth. And when a 17-year-old Swedish girl named Agnetha Lotskog first heard Aretha's voice crackling out of a transistor radio somewhere in Jönköping, Sweden, she was never the same. Here's the part that most ABBA documentaries gloss over. The part that Benny Andersson has, over the years, slowly, quietly, been confirming in interviews. When Agnetha Lotskog, the blonde half of ABBA's famous vocal duo, was asked about her greatest musical influences, her answer was not what people expected from a Swedish pop princess. She named Aretha Franklin, not just as a passing influence, not as a footnote. Aretha Franklin, right alongside Connie Francis and Marianne Faithfull, as one of the core voices that shaped how Agnetha thought about singing. Think about that. The next time you hear Agnetha's voice soar on, The Winner Takes It All, that devastating breakup song, that gut punch of raw emotion that Benny and Bija wrote after Agnetha and Bija Run's divorce. Ask yourself, where did that emotional depth come from? Where did that willingness to be completely exposed in a vocal performance come from? It came from church. It came from gospel. It came from Aretha. Now, here is where Benny enters the picture. Benny Andersson has spoken in multiple interviews about the importance of emotional truth in ABBA's music. He has talked about how the greatest songs must make you feel something real, not manufactured, not polished into meaninglessness, but raw and true. He has pointed, again and again, to the importance of the singer's emotional connection to the material. And who, more than anyone in the history of recorded music, embodied that philosophy? Aretha Franklin. Now, let's get to the heart of it. What is the awful truth that Benny Andersson confirmed? It is this: ABBA was never purely a Swedish phenomenon. ABBA was never just Eurovision pop. ABBA was never just the catchy melodies and sparkly jumpsuits that critics dismissed them as in the 1970s. ABBA was, at its emotional core, deeply influenced by the Black American musical tradition, and specifically by the soul music that Aretha Franklin represented. Benny Andersson has acknowledged, in his careful, understated way, that the emotional architecture of ABBA's greatest songs, the ones that actually hurt when you listen to them, the ones that make grown adults cry in their cars, came from somewhere deeper than pop songwriting craft. It came from soul. It came from gospel. It came from Aretha. And the awful part, the part that stings, is that for years, ABBA were mocked by the very music establishment that worshipped Aretha Franklin. Critics who praised Aretha's raw emotion dismissed ABBA as lightweight. Critics who celebrated Aretha's authenticity called ABBA manufactured. But here is what Benny, who spent most of his adult life battling alcoholism before getting sober in 2001, understands better than almost anyone: real emotion is real emotion, regardless of what language it's sung in, regardless of what country it comes from, regardless of whether it's wrapped in gospel or wrapped in disco. When Agnetha sang Aretha's emotional vocabulary through ABBA's Swedish lens, something happened that nobody in the music industry expected. It went all the way around the world and touched everybody, all 400 million records of everybody. Now go back and listen. Listen to "The Winner Takes It All." Listen to how Agnetha doesn't just perform those lyrics, she bleeds them. That is Aretha's influence. The willingness to be emotionally naked in front of a microphone. The willingness to let the song hurt. Listen to Gim, the driving, relentless pulse of it. The way the vocal rides the groove. That is soul. That is the Memphis and Detroit tradition filtered through Stockholm nights. Listen to Knowing Me, Knowing You. The dignified grief of it. The way loss is presented not as screaming, but as quiet devastation. That is gospel restraint. That is what the church teaches you how to contain the fire. And listen to Dancing Queen, perhaps the most joyful song ever recorded by any pop group, anywhere. The sheer, ecstatic release of it. That is what Aretha Franklin sounded like when she was happy. That is what it sounds like when joy becomes a spiritual act. Benny Andersson built music that could hold all of that. Intricate, mathematically precise arrangements wrapped around performances of absolute emotional truth. He knew what he was building. He knew where the blueprint came from, and now at 78, he has finally said it out loud. Aretha Franklin passed away on August 16, 2018, at the age of 76. In her final public performance, she was visibly ill. But those who were there, the musicians who played behind her, said she gave every single breath she had. One musician who performed with her said, "We gave her every breath of air we had to support her, because we knew this was the godmother of soul sharing her soul with the world." See, Benny Andersson is still with us at 78, still composing, still creating. His son Ludwig produced the extraordinary ABBA Voyage concert residency in London, a show that used cutting-edge holographic technology to bring the 4 ABBA members back as their younger selves. After the premiere, Benny said simply, "We achieved more than we could ever hope for. 2 artists, 2 legacies, one invisible thread connecting them. Both of them understood something that most pop music forgets in its rush to be trendy and disposable. The only songs that last forever are the ones that tell the truth about how it feels to be human." Aretha knew it, Benny knew it, and millions of people, from Detroit to Stockholm to Tokyo to Lagos, knew it the moment they heard it. Music has always been the great bridge builder, the thing that crosses every wall and barrier that human beings construct between themselves. Aretha Franklin, the daughter of a Detroit preacher, and Benny Andersson, the boy from Stockholm who taught himself accordion by ear. They never sat in a room together. They never wrote a song, but they shared something that goes deeper than collaboration. They shared the belief that music must be honest. That, if you're going to stand in front of a microphone, you had better mean every note. Benny finally confirmed the awful truth. And the truth is, it was never awful at all. It was beautiful. If this video moved you, like, subscribe, and drop a comment below which ABBA song hits you the hardest emotionally. Let us know.